I hear all the time that Gen Z just doesn't use Facebook anymore. There's no point in running your campaigns on Facebook. There's no point in running ads on Instagram and having them also go on Facebook. So, is this true? Let's take a look at the actual data here. I think that's what we need to know if it's actually true. Now, if you look at who's teens' favorite social media platform are, you're absolutely right. Facebook is a mess. Facebook is not teens' favorite, and it hasn't been for a long time. You see, in 2021, it was 2%, and it's bouncing between 2 and 3% behind TikTok, Snapchat, and Instagram, as you would expect. However, when we dig a little deeper and we see what are you using at least monthly for Gen Z as of July of this year, you see Facebook coming in at a respectable fifth place. Not great, but not that far behind Snapchat. We're at 54%. And of interest to me, we're ahead of Discord and Twitter and Reddit and Twitch, which you hear about as sort of cool sites, but they are actually far less popular to use monthly than what we see here for good old creaky Facebook. We looked at another data source. This is GWI data that we subscribe to for Q1 and Q2 of this year. And when we ask who uses Facebook at least daily, so once a day or more than once a day, Gen Z, a third of Gen Z is still using Facebook at least daily. Now this is indexing at 57 when an average is 100. So millennials, Gen X, baby boomers are all much more likely than average and certainly much more likely than Gen Z to be using Facebook at least daily. But you still have a third of Gen Z in there daily. Now when we look at who's only using it monthly, Gen Z comes in at the highest rating, over-indexing for using it at least monthly, only monthly, which is less than millennials, which are about average, and Gen X and baby boomers, they're more likely to be checking more often than monthly. Going into TikTok, we see what we might expect, which is Gen Z is number one and over indexes for using it at least daily or more than daily. So if 100 is average, Gen Z is coming in at 160, which means 50% of Gen Z users are using it at least daily. Now remember, Facebook was 33%, so yes, much more common, but it's still only 50% of Gen Z using TikTok at least every day. Millennials drop off but are still above average, and then Gen X and baby boomers are below average at 23% and 12% respectively. Now when we go into TikTok at least monthly, Gen Z is also number one, so this is different than what we saw on TikTok. So Gen Z is most commonly using TikTok, but you see millennials are right behind and not all that far away from Gen X and baby boomers. So TikTok is not entirely young people, and Facebook is not entirely dead for young people yet. Let's look at social network users by generation, and you see number one is the millennials, and you've got the age ranges in here, or the date ranges in here that are generally accepted. Gen Z is still moving up. Why? Because the youngest Gen Z people are still only about 11 years old. And so they're aging up into social network usage while your baby boomers are starting to age out of social network usage. Now, if we look at by platform from this data source, we see very similar data. This is at least monthly, at least one per month, and you see Facebook coming in fourth here for Gen Z, coming in number one for millennials, number one for Gen X, number one for baby boomers, but again, ahead of Twitter, ahead of Reddit. So some of the more interesting sites for younger people are still not performing quite as well, although you do see your Snapchat, TikTok, and Instagram, so that part is definitely true. We then looked at GWI data again for Q1 and Q2, and we looked at it by each audience, and the way to read these charts is the green is the average. So 65% of internet users are using Facebook in the US at least weekly. So weekly, daily, or more than daily, 65%. Now let's zoom in. Before I zoom in, let's look here at Snapchat, 28%, TikTok, 38%, YouTube, 52%. So Facebook is still the number one social network in the US. And if we zoom in on that, we see big differences here with generations. So Facebook, at least weekly, is only about 43% for Gen Z, and it jumps up significantly higher for your millennial and your baby boomers and others. So Instagram is still right here at 52%, much more popular for Gen Z, but holding pretty well for your millennials as well. You see a big drop off from some of these others. If we slide down here to Snapchat, Snapchat is just over 50 at 51%. TikTok's getting closer to 60%, at least weekly usage among Gen Z. But overall, it's 28 and 38% of all US internet users using it at least weekly, so frequent users. But then YouTube often gets forgotten. YouTube's over here at 52%, and YouTube's actually more popular than TikTok, than Snapchat for Gen Z. And I think YouTube gets forgotten an awful lot. So if we zoom out here again, we see number 1 is Facebook, number 2 is in fact YouTube, and number 3 here is Instagram, and then we drop down beyond that. So as you're apportioning your ad dollars and your syndication dollars, I think it's important to remember that all generations are still on Facebook. Now, I wouldn't lead with Facebook for a Gen Z audience, certainly, but if I'm already running on Instagram, I would certainly have units going at the same time on Facebook when my Gen Z audience is there, because they are there, just not as frequently as older audiences, and certainly not as frequently as they used to be. I hope that helps. If you need any help with your social media marketing, please do let us know at ignitesocialmedia.com.